everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach coaching call. Our focus every single week is to deliver the industry's best weekly sales meeting. We're here to connect as a community of like-minded, like-valued mortgage professionals, to learn the ideas and strategies that are working, and to get focused on the week ahead. My name is Dave Savage. I'm the CEO of Mortgage Coach. I urge anybody that's new to our community, this is your first coaching call, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Facebook. Just go to our Facebook page, click like, and every week before these calls, we're putting an announcement of who we're having. And again, anything that's happening in our community, we're sharing it. In fact, we had a great post last week where an originator shared a video that they were doing in terms of rent versus own. They were sending it out to their database. We pushed that up to the top, had lots of conversations around that. So make sure you're paying attention. I'm excited to bring Steve Scanlon, Building Champions coach, into today's call. I'll do a more detailed introduction on Steve in a minute. Steve, welcome to the call.
Thank you. It's great to be here, as always.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So just a bit of a backstory on why I asked Steve here is I've known Steve for years, although we're getting to know each other better, and we both live in the Portland, Oregon area. We said, hey, we need to talk more often. We ran into each other at a sales rally of a large national mortgage bank, and we just really realized that we had a lot of shared passion about the art and science of success. So in that 1-hour meeting, it became apparent to me that, man, we got to bring Steve into the Mortgage Coach call and share some of the ideas and concepts that he has. So Steve, I'm going to walk through a debrief from last week's call for about 5 or 10 minutes until I bring you in as the official guest. If you have any comments or takeaways on what I go over the next 5-10 minutes, feel free to be my co-host and jump in.
You got it.
All right. So let's as a reminder to anybody, if you didn't watch last week's call, it was kind of a unique and different call in that I interviewed a team. Jeremy Forcier, who's a successful mortgage coach loan officer, closing in excess of 20 loans a month, and his team of 2, his transaction coordinator and his assistant. We interviewed all 3 of them, so it was a really neat call. If you missed it, I urge you just go to YouTube, put in Mortgage Coach, and see what that little number 1 is. If you want to pay attention to what we're putting in our YouTube, make sure you subscribe, make sure you let us know what you like. And I also really urge you guys, there was a couple other calls that we posted in past weeks. The Rick Rema coaching call, you can see where the number 3 is, was awesome. And again, anytime we're rolling out new products and solutions, we're always posting something of value in there. So when I re-listened to the call, while there was a lot of takeaways, the 3 big things that jumped out at me was, wow, what a great job Jeremy's done in getting the right people in the right seats in his organization. From a disc scoring perspective, he's the high D, he's got a high S, he's got a high C, he has the right team in place. I was also, just blown away with the fact how focused all of them were around the wow. So it was not a new term to anybody. It was very intentional. It was very well orchestrated. Everybody on the team understood that we're here to surpass the expectations of our clients. And I think it was also pretty cool just how key and how well they were using all the right tools with positive energy. And I'll get to the whole positive energy piece in a minute. So the debrief is, when I asked the question, guys, what is your most powerful wow tool? So some tool in the wow platform that's helping you surpass your clients' expectations. What's that one tool that's key? With Bia, whose job it was to manage all the incoming leads. Again, in Jeremy's case, he gets 120 plus incoming borrower leads a month. He's got a lot of realtor relationships. For her, it was all about, keeping promises and managing relationships and meetings. So it was all about her CRM, and they use Mortgage Planner CRM. For Danielle, and by the way, this was a total surprise for me, and again, I'm not just highlighting this. If you listen to her answer, listen to that call, it was so authentic. It was the Edge TCA video, because she's the transaction coordinator. Jeremy is winning the trust. He's providing this consultation to the client, And every time he does it, he creates a 2 to 3 minute video. Sometimes it's only 1 minute. And she said that is the key, because one, when Jeremy and I are handing things back and forth to each other, it's all around I do the 1003 and manage your transaction. Jeremy delivers the advice and as she called it, sells rates. And this is how he does it. And he creates this video, so all I got to do is I watch it. I know what Jeremy communicated to the client. It makes our handoffs better, more wow, and everybody's on the same sheet. So that was kind of a new takeaway, and I wanted to make sure everybody got it. When I asked Jeremy that same question, of course, he couldn't just come up with one wow tool. He started with my phone. Without my phone, without the mobility of it, I can't be me. I can't be on the phone anytime, everywhere. So I don't think it was a surprise. I didn't expect that answer. But when you think about it, it's pretty obvious. And again, Jeremy couldn't just say one tool. He had to keep going. He then, and this was to me a massive, I don't know, not an epiphany. We all know this, and Steve, you know this. But he's like, my second, it's my energy. It's me. It's the sense of urgency that I'm creating. It's the work ethic that I have. It's the way that I drive these tools. So I just thought it was cool that when I asked that question, he actually answered it this way. I got to have my phone. I got to have my energy. And then he went on to say edge, because that's my borrower conversation. That's my unique value proposition. And I've got to have my CRM, because that's how I keep promises and manage lots of relationships. So if everybody on this call didn't get similar takeaways, watch it again. Make sure you connect with this stuff, because it's a pretty simple formula. Phone, energy, edge, CRM. Again, it's more complex. There's more to it, but this is part of the formula. Hey, Steve, any comments or thoughts as I break that down, even though you didn't see or hear the call?
Yeah. Well, one is that slide you had of the guy jumping over the rock. Was that actually Jeremy? Was that his energy?
No, that was me doing a Google search for a great image that Jeremy would want to do.
Oh, shoot, because I thought if he had that energy, that'd be really cool. No, I actually really like that, and I don't know if you chose to I mean, you chose to showcase this in part, Dave, because, in part because you did the call last week, but also I clearly see a blend of art and science even in his WOW tool, so I don't know if you intended to do that to dovetail into what we're talking about, but there's just some tangible, I mean, people hear energy, and I just think there could be people on the call going, yeah, okay, kind of fluffy sounding and whatever, and yet it seems pretty crucial to me, and I thought it was really good for him to identify that and call that out.
Yeah, no, again, I think why it does dovetail so well into what we're going to talk about is I did a WOW selling interview, so some of the questions we're going to ask, some of the direction we're going to go came from that, but this was pure. It was just pure takeaways. So a couple other takeaways, probably not as profound and I think is essential as these, but I laid this out also in the call because more and more loan officers, I think, are really trying to make sure that from a digital online perspective, they're being efficient, they're creating relationships, they're being a wow, but there's so many pieces to the puzzle that I think, one, it gets confusing, and I see too many loan officers either over-complexifying it and wasting time, energy, and money, or completely ignoring it and not having the digital presence that I think in this era we need to have and we should have. And I think Jeremy has done this, some of it unintentionally, some of it intentionally, very, very well. So I'm going to just, and again, I covered this in the call. I'm going to cover this in more calls. But I do want to, Jeremy is doing it so well, I want to make sure everybody gets this intentionally. So he's got his home base. He's got his website. It's professional. People can do business with him. They can apply online. They know how to get in touch with him. They have social proof that he's a player. So I'm not going to break down his website, but just I ask everybody, do you have your home base in order online? He's got his media empire. So he's got, a YouTube page that's well organized with professional content that he can integrate into his home base, and he can also use it in other ways. So and he does that in a really professional, good way. It's obvious in the fact that he's got over 6,000 views of his videos. I know companies that don't have 6,000 views of their videos. So he's using this intelligently. And then he's got his outpost. Again, I'm going to use Facebook as an example. I also think your email database is an outpost. I think Twitter's an outpost. I think different people with different passion and different strategies should have different outposts. But Jeremy's got a good, solid Facebook outpost. So I just want to make sure, my goal here isn't to say everybody needs to be Jeremy. My point is everybody needs to be intentional. And if you don't care about your digital presence, be intentional about that and say, I don't care about it, and don't have one. Don't have a crappy one. You know, make sure if you're going to play, you play to win, you play to deliver excellence. So real quick, this was covered in the call. I want to make sure people got the takeaway, they're following up on it, and you're being intentional about your strategy. So again, last reminder before we bring Steve into the conversation, if you want to watch that call, there's links everywhere, but you can go do a search on YouTube and you can get to it. So Mr. Steve Scanlon, you're up to bat. I know a little bit about your past. I know that, you know, for the most part, your adult life, you have either been a mortgage executive, running a big company, or I should say running a big team. You were a national production leader for a large organization with 100+ loan officers, and I know that was years ago. I know you as coach at Building Champions, and I primarily know you from all the great things I hear about you from your clients, and the 2 or 3 times I've seen you speak, every time you didn't just tell me something that I'm like, that's a great idea. You like really connected emotionally with me. So I mean, that's how I know you. If you wouldn't mind, just for anybody who's on this call that, you know, they don't know you, they're hearing you for the first time, just give us, you know, 1-2 minutes about who are you, and from a mortgage coach perspective, you know, how does that relate to us?
God, that's a huge question, dude.
You have a knack for answering huge questions pretty well.
I think it's really I think it's really cool that you and I didn't practice this. I told you that before the call, that they're going to get raw feedback and data, which I always think is. I always think it's, even when you're hearing presentations, when people know they're perfectly scripted and have all the polished answers and stuff. I don't know. To me, that's a little less. Even if it is genuine, it comes off less than that. And I don't mean to tie it right to what you're doing with all of your presentations too. I know you've helped a ton of people. I love the thing about the outpost, but I've worked with a lot of clients at Building Champions over the years, Dave, and I know this is something that you have coached other people on, but so many people, when they get into doing all their outposts or video or audio or anything like that, I know there's some fear behind a lot of this because I just hear it, but so many people are trying to make that so perfect, and it just, I don't know, even if they got it to some level of perfection, they probably polished it so much that it's sterile anyway. So, you know, my encouragement would be for all those people that you use, that you help do video, that you help with all the things, don't go for perfect. I think when you're umming and ahhing a little bit, and, you know, even if you do a couple of outtakes and leave them in there, I think people just connect with that more. And so, yeah, I mean, it can't be overly sloppy, but somewhere between sloppy and perfect is one that you actually get out, and that's kind of it's one of those sayings that I've used a lot as a coach, and it's not mine. In fact, someone will probably write in or call in and say who said it, but, you know, the perfect plan you never execute is way less effective than the mediocre one you do today. So, you know, that's, I really like it for that. So, you know, who am I? I mean, I've been a coach for 13 years at Building Champions. It's in my blood. It's something that I've really enjoyed doing. I think Building Champions is, I mean, there's a lot of coaching companies out there, but I think Building Champions takes, again, I'm biased, obviously, but I think we take one of the most holistic views of people's lives and their businesses. We're not life coaches, I guess. In some ways, we are, because we coach people through the process of life planning. We're executive coaches. We help people with their business for the purpose of structuring it, finding the right people behind it, getting people on the right bus. Loved hearing that about Jeremy, and, you know, just the right bus at the right time. I think that's really difficult for people. But then we do that for the purpose of them ultimately coming back and saying, hey, what kind of life do I want to live? And Dave, I think that maybe sums up a little bit about who I am. And, you know, my biggest rush and charge in life is certainly being able to help people grow their business, but get to a spot where they can feel really fulfilled in life and feel some of the joy out of life. And I don't know, man, it just seems like I do know and coach some people that do that, but we're working and living in this culture where, ironically, it's becoming a little more scarce. So part of my passion vocationally, and I love that word vocation, you know, we get the word vocal from it. It means a calling, right? I mean, sometimes your job is your vocation and sometimes it's not. And so really my calling is about helping people. There's something about why I'm attracted to sports as well. I love seeing normal people do extraordinary things. I mean, again, I like watching Tiger Woods or whatever, and you see Super 8 films of this kid when he was 5 years old and he already had a swing, and you're, okay, that's cool. When somebody didn't and they developed it, and they went from X to Y and they actually made some changes in their life for the positive, which I might talk a little bit about later, that I actually think that's, you know, that's not common. It was Will Rogers that said people change, but not much. And that's kind of sad, you know. And so when people actually do and they grow, I think that's my vocation. It's who I am, and irrespective of where I go with my job and where I go with coaching, and I'm always going to find that because that's part of who I am. Is that a fair enough answer?
I think it's a great answer, and I think it aligns well with where I'd love to take this call. And I hope everybody on this call, I hope what you get out of this is here's a man who's been in the trenches, so he knows our space well. He's not just an author, consultant, coach that knows it from an armchair quarterback standpoint. He's gone through the struggles that you guys go through. He understands that. And he's a man whose profession and what he's dedicated himself to for the past 13 years is helping other professionals get clear on how to be successful in business and life, but he's also their accountability partner. He's the guy who helps them actually get it done. So to me, whenever I talk to someone like that or I hear from someone, it's a little extra special important because we all hear good ideas, but let's face it, the big struggle in all of our businesses isn't good ideas, it's getting those good ideas done. It's making personal changes to, you know, shore up our weakness and increase our strengths. So I hope y'all will turn off your inboxes and really pay attention to this next 45 minutes because I think if you do, it could make a difference for you. So with that said, I'm gonna first for about 15 minutes, Steve, just to set some expectations for you, gonna go through some wow selling questions. So let's not spend the whole call on this because I want to get to some of your real passion. How do we help people actually change and start drawing some of that? So let's start with wow selling. For most of you, I think you've heard me talk now. This will be the 5th call and the 5th time I've done a wow selling interview with someone. So most of you have heard that. A few of you are new to this call. So wow selling is one of my projects where I'm really, in a very intentional way, finding really exceptionally successful people who are successful and finding out how are they doing it all around this concept that the best and the most successful, it's all about the art and science of how the best salespeople win by surpassing expectations, also known as wowing. That's the bullseye. And again, this was in my journey as a salesperson, as a leader, as a manager, and really the seed that Mortgage Coach was born from was this is selling made simple. If you just focus on one thing, always surpassing your client's expectations in a very profound, in a very systematic, in a consistent way, you'll be really, really successful. And everybody I do this interview with, you know, they are wow people. They are wow salespeople. I mean, there's a lot of people in this world that are win. Their goal is just to win a deal, to win a relationship, to win a game, whatever it is. And then there's people that just go for the stars. I don't want to win. I want to wow. I want to blow people's minds. So that's what this is all about. So with that said, Steve, how important is wowing when you look at your most successful coaching clients? you know, and you look at the ones that wow and the ones that win, how important is the wow factor in your opinion?
Well, I mean, well, to be truthful, the answer to that, from my view, is almost implied in your question, right? I mean, wouldn't be much of a call if I said, Dave, I'd give it a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of importance. I really like your definition there of winning versus wowing, and how important is it? Well, I think if you were to interview some of the top people that I've coached over all of the years, rather than me having an opinion about it, I guess I could try to be the collective voice for them and go, it's everything. It really is. And the winning thing, so many of them have tried to go down that road, and they have won. It's funny when you just try to win, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like how you set that up. That sort of reminds me of Jim Collins' work, good to great, right? Good versus great.
Yeah, totally.
Winning's good. Hey, you want to win? That's really good. And it's maybe another synonym for that would be success and significance, right? There are people that go and pursue success, and they get it. And if that, it's just funny that at the end of that, the end of winning, you'll still wake up and go, okay, now what? And I ultimately think the way that you're defining wow, it's such a cool pursuit because there isn't really an end, and I think when you pursue wow, and to the degree to which it's important to all the people that I've coached, you never get to a spot where you're going, okay, well, that's it, now what? I mean, I think there's always something new. There's always something, a new way to pursue clients, a new way to, again, wow people. And I also think that when you win, well, I don't know. I guess I would ultimately say, again, speaking on behalf of the people that I coach, the wow factor, Dave, ultimately you get to believe that your best is yet to come. And when you win, I think people question that.
Yeah.
And so there's always let me tell you this. Nobody's ever fully completed wow. No hotel, no restaurant, no mortgage, banker, broker. Nobody's ever. There's more to do. There's different and greater ways to go, and the sky's the limit with it. So I dig it for its sort of the implication. And to answer your question, for some of my top clients, it's really everything.
And that is the answer I hear in a lot of different textures, in a lot of different ways. It's all about that. But here's the struggle. It is the bullseye, but you know what? It's hard to always hit that bullseye, and it's hard to consistently always hit that bullseye. Now, a truth that I am identifying as I do these interviews, that the most successful people, they hit the bullseye the most often with the most clients, and it is success. It is that simple. I didn't use the word easy. I just said it's that simple. So real quick, and I think let's flow. Since you are a coach, let's do this, and I want you to kind of, as best as you can, think of a few of your best customers in the mortgage space, and let's talk about some of the ways, and again, just to keep this flowing, we got about 8 more minutes of this wow selling conversation. I've got about 2 more questions so that we get into your content. But why don't you share just a couple of the ways in which your best clients wow?
Okay, well, I guess the first, that's sort of top-of-mind awareness. That's like you asking me, I'm going to say dog, you say something. I have to just kind of go with what comes to the top of my mind.
That's the idea here.
Yeah. I think the first thing that came to my mind, and kind of going back even to your concept with Jeremy, the CRM, how do we really use that? It doesn't matter how many conferences, books, whatever we hear, I think still this industry is in great need of capitalizing on their database more than they do. And you can hear that a million different times, but that was one of the first things that went to my head is I'm thinking of 2 or 3 clients that actually do a brilliant job of marketing effectively, and by that, not to go too much into what you want to ask, but just the art and science of doing that. There is a science behind that, and I have a couple that have some amazingly scientific processes. Here's how we touch people. Here's how we tier our past clients, A's, B's, and C's, gold, platinum, silvers. Here's the things we do for each of them and how and when and why. And then I think of a couple of people that do a brilliant job of being pretty spontaneous with people. You know, I heard, I don't know if I should throw names out there, but I don't know, maybe I could. I heard, well, let's just say a billion-dollar originator. He built a really big business. He was from Chicago. And, you know, this guy, he had been to a couple of seminars, and he's an older guy. You know him, Dave, and he's a great guy. And he heard some people talking about database this and getting into all the science of it, which was really good. And in one seminar, he stood up there and he's like, here, you guys are all crazy. Here's what you need to do. You need to call 3 people every day. Now, most people heard that. I noted as a coach that no one got on their pad and paper and went, oh, that's genius. You know, they were looking for the magic pill, the this and that. And again, I'm not saying there aren't some really cool ways to effectively utilize the CRM, but you know how many people miss the just call 3 people a day? Like if that was, I mean, and I can't tell you how many times that I've made that an action plan in coaching and how many of my top people, you know, come heck or high water, they're calling 3 people a day. And I've even exaggerated that a little bit and said, look, if you get into a car accident and you're in an ambulance and you're still conscious and have a cell phone, make your 3 calls. It sounds a little extreme, and again, I don't know that I mean that in that exact way, but the truth is we have so many reasons not to do that, and yet for the people that really dedicate themselves to doing that, I think they win in a big way.
Well, I think you nailed it in a couple ways, and just to kind of tie this to anybody who's listened to past calls over and over and over when I ask that question, again, people answer it in different ways, but for the most part, I heard three things that I've heard before. One, it's wow communication. They've got either one, personal discipline, personal passion, and it's become this necessary habit that they communicate with lots of people, and they I don't want to say over, but they exceed expectations because they have a CRM. I mean, you can manage 5, 6, 10 relationships without a CRM, but if you want to be mega successful, you've got to have systems. And I'm not saying it needs to be Salesforce or it needs to be Mortgage Planner Pro. It just means you need to have a system, and you need to, again, I ask everybody on this call, when you think of how proactive you are at communication, you think of fulfilling well promises. You know, when you tell someone you're going to call them back, you call them back. You do it. And I hear it all the time. You know, when I ask, how do you wow, it's how I communicate, how I keep promises, and then wow prospecting. I have yet to talk to a great, super successful originator that has prospecting as a habit. And I love your analogy to the point where if I was injured in a car accident, I'd be like, my day's not finished. I haven't prospected. You know, I haven't. And again, I hear some people it's 3 calls, some people it's 20 calls. The bottom line is a day doesn't go by without that success habit. So I think you nailed that, and you reaffirmed some things I've heard before. So yeah. One more wow selling question, and then we're going to get into the big show, is this concept of art and science, and that, okay, wow's the bullseye. How do we do it more consistently? Some of us are more artists, and you speak to that spontaneity. I can't use the word. I won't butcher it any further. Spontaneity. You talked about how we connect emotionally. You talk about X factor. And some people are more scientists. You know, they use technology, and it comes natural to them. They're very process-driven. They're drawn to that. But so far, most of the most successful people that I speak to, there's some balance. Now, their nature draws them one way. I mean, a lot of people don't know this about me. And Steve, when you and I first started having this conversation, it's been over a month ago, you know, this project, Wow Selling, was really born through, one, how twisted I was about how important it is to balance out the art and science, and that wow is the bullseye. I mean, I didn't tell you this, but I would say that this conversation we're having, this whole wow selling, I don't think it was born in that meeting, but you know, over a 2-week period, before you and I met last, after we met last, I really took on this project because I just believe that the fastest path for so many people to deliver more wow, it's balancing this out. So with that said, I have two questions. One, just you can name this quickly. What are you? Are you more artist or scientist? And then when you start thinking about your clients, what's the breakdown? Is it literally 50-50 on art and scientist? So first of all, what's yours? And then what do you think the breakdown is with your clients?
Mine, I guess, might be easy to answer. I guess I gravitate more towards the artistic approach to things, evidenced by the fact that we were scrambling to get on the webinar here in the last 5 minutes. So
he needed 2 people to help him log in. So
that'll be one of the points I make about science later on. But yeah, I'm more of an artist. I think, Dave, you and I, when we've touched on this topic of artist to science, it was one of those things where have you ever had that? I'm sure people on the call have had that phenomenon happen to them when they talk to somebody about something and they realize other people have been thinking about it, and you just kind of connect the minds. And it's something that I've been coaching for many, many years. We did an entire event around the concept of art and science, and then you'd been thinking about it on your own, and that's why you and I kind of had this electric sort of connection on it. In terms of how people break down, it's so difficult for me to say because I do truly, Dave, have a blend of both. But I think you're the one that hit it on the head when you say that maybe the best of the best, they do understand which one they gravitate more. And I think if we had more time, it would really get into almost a debate about whether in life you want to maximize your strength or really go out and try to bolster your weakness. And I'm sure there are people on the call that are, pounding their fist on the table saying, no, you don't, forget your weakness and just maximize your strength. Okay, and there's other people that go, no, if you make your weakness your greatest strength, you'll, get the moon or whatever it is. I don't know where I sit on that. I think you probably have to do a little of both, and I think the best of the best in terms of your little center there of wow. I would tell you that I just could give you some really great examples of some people that I coach that I don't know, people aren't going to want to hear this, but some of my top people have never put a plan together their entire life. I think they still have a pad of paper and a pencil and are doing 1003s by hand, and could there be a better way, and could they deploy some science? Yeah, but their artistic ability is so strong that they're just that attractive to people. Then there's some people that, we ask for a business plan and coaching, and they send me an 82-page deal. I mean, good God, Linda Davidson, that's a scientific approach, and some of them might need to sort of, understand a little bit more of the the artistic approach to things. It's never, I think if you get people way out on the edges of both, you're only an artist, well, you're going to be sitting on the ground and in a lotus position, and no one's going to want to do business with you. But you'll be a really cool person. And if you're a mad scientist, well, no one's going to understand you. So, I think it's good to understand which way you gravitate and maximize that. And
that's it right there, by the way.
Yeah, and then the last thing I would say is you might not want to always build it as your strength. If you can't and don't want to, well, then I hope you figure out a way to get there through technology or people. Jeremy, he has his 2 people there, and my guess is he's unknowingly maybe staffed one of them as a scientist, and that way. So I think there's different ways to go get that.
Well, I think the only message I hope everybody gets, I'm not telling you which is right, which is wrong, even what perfect balance is. My message is be intentional. Think deeply, what are you, as you build out your team, make sure that you're filling the gaps. And in many cases, the fastest path to a breakthrough in your own success is your ability to do that. And so I'm an artist, but I have to think building Mortgage Coach was, for me, and again, I didn't do this intentionally many years ago, it was a crutch to keep me and my team executing some science that I thought was important to success. And so Jeremy, by the way, is a major artist, and both his assistants are scientists, but by the way, they're pretty well balanced. They're also they're high S and C, but they've got a lot of high I. So there's a lot of balance. And by the way, it was such an awesome interview because he was the whole artist talking about how he balanced science. They were both scientists, but they had a natural balance. So that was another thing that I thought was really interesting with this team is how well balanced they all were and how pretty intentional. I mean, they had never gone through my interview, but they were rock stars. So one last question, and then we are going to get into the big show, Steve. I want everybody, Denise, if you could put out a poll. What are you? Are you more the artist by nature, and you have to really intentionally work on adding science? Are you more the process-oriented, analytically driven scientist, and emotionally connecting with people is the struggle, or something? Which one are you? Denise, please push that poll, and let's give it about 30 seconds to make sure we get as many people answering as possible. By the way, I am truly curious as to how this is going to roll out. I have never asked this question to a large group like this. I don't know. Steve, do you have any guts on how the answer is going to come up?
No, but as people are thinking about that, I'd just give 30 seconds into a quick, you probably did it by default, but an artist, by definition, we define them in extremes. Not that you are extreme if you're listening on the call, but just so that you can understand the spectrum of what you're voting on. An artist is that connective, has that it factor, magnetic, warm, relational, intangible, that whole, you're an artist. And then the scientist, as Dave mentioned, is much more technical-oriented, thinks more linearly, and kind of gets things done that way through a process, whereas artists really get things done through people. So I'd be curious. Now go.
All right. So let's push those results. And Denise, if you could, okay, so by the way, it came in almost 50-50. It was 49% artists, 51% scientists. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I thought one was gonna win, and if I had to guess, I thought it would have been the artist. There were more artists in our industries. But cool. And by the way, we got a lot of votes. So Steve, this is a learning for us, at least for me. So
well,
that's pretty cool.
What's really interesting about your poll is it's still a self-assessment. If I was going to give an action plan as a coach, I would say it would be really cool for people that voted in terms of what they were to find the 2 or 3 people that are closest to them in life and define in 2 minutes what those are, and then ask people just point blank, which do you think I am?
Right.
Because that could be very revealing for them. You telling me you're an artist, you probably are at some level. That's a little surprising for me. I think you're kind of a closet artist, but whatever. You start a company called Mortgage Coach, and you're
Hey, so by the way, check this out, Steve. So when you and I met and we were having this conversation, I thought I was a scientist too, and I because I am so numbers focused. By the way, I'm getting an echo, Steve. So I don't know what happened on your end.
I don't know. Are you echoing stuff?
Yeah, no, it just went away. It was just a short burst of echo. But I was certain of it because I have worked so hard to shore up a weakness into a strength. But when I really think about, you don't know this, but I was a photography minor in college. I still to this day I don't think a week goes by that I don't take 300 photos. And so much of who I am, and you're right, I'm a wannabe artist. I am so jealous and so envious of people that are, make a living, whether it's professional photographers, whether it's, artists of every type are my rock stars. Those are my idols. And so I'm more wannabe artist, but, when it comes to business and it comes to success, I have just tremendous respect for the importance of science. And while I'm very passionate about CRM, I think our organization does a great job of implementing it. And I really look back at my entire career, I would say that, I'm a leader in that. You know what? I struggle so hard on that. To keep a consistent drumbeat is like my fight of life. It is so much easier for me to, just go all over the place. I am a crazy artist who has tremendous respect for science and fights every day to keep the focus. But with that said, Steve, I want to pass the baton to you. You have some amazing content to share around, hey, we all want to, there's things in our lives that we want to change, but change isn't easy. And rewiring our minds, I know you've got an exciting project that you're working on. So why don't you share your screen, walk us through some of your slides, and let's talk about how we can actually, you know, whether we're an artist, whether we're a scientist, how can we make some changes to be more successful personally and professionally?
All right, well, on April 1st of this year, I formed a new corporation called Rewire Inc., and working in conjunction with Building Champions, you know, being able to define this here and getting into why rewire and why would we rewire our minds. And really, as you kind of see that next slide, and I'm going to talk a little bit about
by the way, Steve, you have not shared your slides yet, so there's one more push that you need to make. I don't know. I'll tell you when I can see them.
Okay, you tell me.
There we go. I can see it.
Go back. All right, cool. So Rewire is a company that I formed, and the truth of the matter is I formed the company because I saw too many people, and I'll kind of show this here, going to seminars, reading books, coming into coaching calls, whatever it was, and there just seems to be this draw, and I think we get the concept of motivation, and again, I don't have time to go into all of that, but it's so common for people to get motivated very temporarily, and then down there in the right-hand corner, this happens to us by Monday, right? We get motivated, and then we kind of come back to what we always did. And I'm not saying that people, again, don't make some changes and there aren't epiphanies from time to time, but it's so common to get really excited, go to something really cool, and then come back and kind of be in the same rut. And so Rewire is about taking a hard look at what needs to rewire in our minds for that effect to stop happening. Right? I mean, you could be listening to this call, and I'm not going to try to guess that people are going to have an epiphany around wow selling, or an epiphany around wow, I'm more of an artist or a scientist, but they could. But if you do, and you don't rewire your brain, then the likelihood of you going back and just having that be something like, wow, that was great, and I can't even remember it 2 days from now. I mean, I don't want you to push out another survey, but if I could ask people the question, when was the last time you read a book, loved it, and then 3 weeks later couldn't tell anybody the first thing in it? And if I had to raise my hand, I'd tell you that happens. And, it's very possible that that's happening even more and more, possibly as technology grows and we become that much more sensitized to all the stuff that's going around us. But the truth is, I think a lot of people, they want to make changes, they want to make positive changes, and the last thing I'll say, and the reason I kind of started Rewire, is that I really believe that, to me it's sort of a spiritual thing. I think we were made in God's image to get better. I really do. I think every single day we're called to get a little bit better. And so when you go to something and you want to get better, or you wake up and you go, I want that, I want to improve here, I want to wow my clients, I want to whatever, I think that's built into us. And then lastly, I'll just tell you that I don't want to get into this too much, but for anybody that's ever taken a course in physics, there's a theory in physics that really stems out of the second law of thermodynamics, and the theory is entropy. So entropy, again, there might be some people on the call that I could get way over my head here really quickly, but entropy is really all about the fact that the universe is in a state of decay. When left alone, any matter in the universe moves to disorder. So you're sitting there going, okay, why does that matter? Well, if you couple the fact that we want to get better every single day, people want to, that's hardwired into you, there's a wiring, and you think about the fact that entropy exists. So in other words, a car, if you don't touch a car, never improve upon it or whatever, does it get better or worse? Your body, if you don't ever work on it in any form, you're just going to let it go, will it get better or worse? Or your mind, if you don't work on it, will it get better or worse? Well, again, those are hypothetical questions, and the answer for everybody should clearly be worse, because you learn something. In this world, You know, I know that gets pretty philosophical, but things are either getting better or they're getting worse. You cannot stay the same. You can't stay the same. There's no, and people, here's what's crazy, your lizard brain, which I'll talk about, wants you to try to stay the same. There are people that are on the call right now going, I'm pretty successful, why would I do anything new? Well, because if you don't try to get a little bit better, by default, you're going to get a little worse. There's no coasting. You're going to get a little better or a little worse, or a lot better or a lot worse. You cannot coast. If you try, entropy will cause you to get a little bit worse. Does that make sense? Is that kind of clear on that? I don't know. Anybody? All right. So that's kind of why I created Rewire.
That was, by the way, very, very clear.
Okay, good. You kind of went off there. I don't know. I'm talking into a box now, so who knows? So
I had it on mute, so I was talking to a box.
No problem. So let me just, you know, again, we don't have a whole lot of time here. If you go back and even look at the logo of what Rewire was designed to do here, there's a little lizard up there. Lizard brain is something that quite a few scientists over the years and different thought leaders have been talking about for a long time. The concept that every single one of us has a lizard brain. Your brain is designed to do one thing, and it's to help you survive. That's it. Survival is the only thing your brain was designed primarily to do. And so in order to survive, your brain does 4 things really, really effectively. Now, this might all sound like, okay, where are we going with this? Why are we doing this? If you understand what your brain is trying to do, then it will give you some clues as to why each of us has the propensity to read a book, go to a seminar, get motivated, and then go back to what we always did. And so part of getting through that is being educated that we've all got this thing called lizard brain. You have a lizard brain, Dave. My lizard brain is in full force all the time. Everybody's got one. When you learn about lizard brain, you're going to be mad at it, and you're going to want to kill it. You can't kill your lizard brain. If you killed your lizard brain, you die. It has to live with you. However, if it controls you, you'll never get any better. I shouldn't say never. That's extreme. You're going to have a tough time changing even positive things. So the lizard brain does 4 things. I've got little slides up here to show you. The first thing the lizard brain does is it looks for familiarity. Your brain every single day, and I have this woman driving in a car because one of the things that I have people in my workshops and people that I've coached do is, starting tomorrow, I want you to drive to work differently. And there are people that when you say that to them, they get kind of like, that's weird, man. I love the way I drive to work. I'm not changing that. We want familiar things. When things are familiar, then you survive. Get it? Because you're on the call right now. Right? You probably have clothes on, you're dressed, and you could probably look around and go, man, I make money, I'm surviving. I want the familiar things. Well, that's good, and some of that's good, but only searching for familiar things is one of the first blocks into getting better. Does that make sense? Like we come away from seminars and go, yeah, I want to go from X to Y, and we hear language that people use like go to the next level and all that. You know, the next level implies a change, and so the next level will be unfamiliar. And if you're not equipped to understand that the lack of familiarity is going to cause your lizard brain to go, don't do that, which is one of the key reasons why we come back on Monday and we, you know, look like that guy in the bottom right-hand corner again. So familiarity is the first thing. There's some cool tools that we're going to use to help people break familiarity. The second thing is being right. That's the second thing that the lizard brain does. First is familiarity. The second is to be right. I have a picture of Mustard up here because I have a really good friend and client who told me a story about, and I told the story at the experience a couple of years ago with Building Champions. And again, we would never mention who, but this client basically got into a debate with his wife about whether or not they needed mustard in their house in a supermarket, and really quickly that conversation escalated into one thought they did, the other thought they didn't, and then they started to debate and argue about it and fight about it to the point where they were talking about divorce in the supermarket. Because one didn't trust it, you always do this, and they just totally escalated it. And then when my client was telling me the story about it, he came in and he basically said, and we got home, and I was right because we had a lot of those already.
Hey,
well,
so Steve, yeah. I'm sorry, but I have to challenge you on this one because I know when it comes to getting along with my teenage daughter and a successful relationship with my wife that I need to change this, and I have to be always wrong in order to have positive relationships.
Well,
Is that just me, or is that like a common thing?
Again, that would be a little extreme. You know, you're not always wrong, and that would be a little extreme.
I know. My 8th grade daughter thinks I am, though.
Well, yeah, well, that's a whole other call. I'll do, but whatever. I think what I'm trying to do here with this slide, maybe the kind of an action I would give people if you kind of find yourself like, I find this really strong sense of having to be right. Well, your lizard brain has to be right. That's not just you, Dave. That's all of us. We all want to be right. But the one thing I like to coach people on, and I've done this at Building Champions for years, is it's a different equation. Rather than thinking right versus wrong, maybe we could begin to think right versus peace. Do you want to be right, or do you want to have peace? And that, if you could begin to like bring that into just consider a different equation, can't tell you how many things that will save in your life. And not always being right. By the way, we don't think of this, but if you want to be that guy going to their gal, going to the seminar and getting better, it's so funny. What we used to do felt right to us. So when you do something new, your brain will actually go, well, that's wrong. There was right and that's wrong. And that's, if we keep thinking that right and wrong equation, we don't change. The third thing that your lizard brain does is it looks for what we call habituation. I have a person laying on a couch here. Basically, your brain wants to lay on a couch. It really does. It doesn't want to have any effort. And if you think about survivability, like, again, I'm not an expert in this. I know Barry Engelman is there, Building Champions. If you get lost in the woods, or, you know, if somehow you're out in, you're out in the wilderness and you're lost, one of the first things apparently they teach you is to conserve energy, right? That'll cause you to survive. You don't go out and waste a bunch of energy. Well, your brain's doing that all the time, which is exactly why we have some habits. And by the way, I picked a different slide, and I went to this one. I thought it was a little bit more neutral. I picked a person chewing their fingernails, or you could pick somebody smoking. There's some habits that we have, and in order to break them, yeah, I know with like smoking and different drinking, you know, whatever that might be, you get into sort of a physiological part of that too. But part of it is to break that habit, your brain's going, do you have any clue of how much energy that will take? And your brain, your lizard brain's whispering to you all the time, you don't have the energy. Don't waste that energy doing it. Get it? And so there's another reason as we talk about success and as your people hear about success, one of the reasons we can rewire is because we actually have the power, and you do have the energy to break some habits. And again, I hear things like, and again, maybe there's people on the call, and I've heard selling techniques of you can break a habit in 21 days and stuff like that. Maybe. But for some people, they've been building that habit for 40 years, and I just am not the kind of guy that thinks, oh, you can do that in 21 days. I think people underestimate the difficulty of this, and I don't think it's overly complex, but I do think it can be difficult, but possible. In fact, if we don't look at the difficulty of it, oftentimes I think we get motivated, don't go to the proverbial next level, because we underestimated the difficulty. And then we get wiped out by an enemy we didn't think existed. So I'd rather call the enemy out and go, look, it's hard. The last piece that your brain does to survive is it looks to control. It looks to control. It wants to control. I literally last week had a client tell me, man, Steve, I can take a whole bunch of stuff in this mortgage business. I hate the feeling of not being in control. And I kind of chuckled to myself, and I thought, oh, you and 7 billion other people on planet Earth, nobody likes not being in control. You know, and I even look at mortgage banking today. Look at how much lizard brain has affected us. Look, if you're an originator on the call, if you're a manager on the call, if you're a CEO on the call, every one of these parts of our lizard brain has been challenged in mortgage banking in the last year and a half. Every one of them. Things aren't familiar to us anymore. You wake up every day and there's a new FHA guideline, there's a new circular, Fannie and Freddie come out with something, underwriting guidelines are changing every day. You think that challenges people's sense of familiarity? How many times have we heard, oh my gosh, I used to do it like this. This is how it's done. I'm right. And we get into fighting about who's right and who's wrong when things have changed. There's the be right thing. We've had habits that we don't want to break, and we all feel out of control. You can't talk to the appraiser anymore. You can't do this. There's no talking to the underwriters. We feel out of control. Every part of your lizard brain is on heightened awareness, and then we wonder why people aren't changing as effectively as they could in mortgage banking. But the good news is you can, because you can be aware of these things. And so that's kind of what we did in Rewire. So I just kind of wanted to bring it back to our talk really quickly, Dave. I got about 3 or 4 minutes before I have to jump, and I know the rest of the people do too. If you've thought about, hey, I'm more of an artist and I'm more of a scientist, and that makes sense to you, and you want to go, man, I want to deploy a little bit more science. Well, that thought will challenge your lizard brain. And if you're not familiar with what the lizard brain is, or even some tools on how to rewire that, all it'll ever be is a thought. And you'll go off into the future being an artist, and that's okay. You're not going to shrivel up and die. But if you want to deploy more science, you have to embrace the fact that your brain is saying, don't deploy anything new, because I don't want to change. And certainly if you want to be a scientist deploying more art, how do you like that scientist guy? You know, I think a scientist to deploy more artists, same thing, going in reverse. I do think it's a blend, Dave. I do think if you want to wow clients, you have to be somewhere there in the middle. I do think people can do that, and that's kind of what my project of Rewire and the company is all about, and I kind of want to bring that to the world. I've brought it to the world for the last 4 or 5 years in coaching. I think the coaches here at Building Champions do a great job of that. And so, yeah, I think we need to, I have this guy out here. Part of getting this is being aware of it. Now, I think there's some other tools that we can do, but even raising the awareness to it, most people's lizard's brain go, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to talk about this. You will find change difficult, but possible. And I think that brings me right back to where I started with, that's what gets me excited, is when people actually change. People actually change. And you don't have to, you don't have to, but I just, Jim Collins, the great, author and thought leader, he wrote that book, Good to Great, and he said the enemy of great is good. And I thought, how perfect for lizard brain. If your life's going pretty good and you make pretty good money, and then you attend a seminar where you learn you can be great, just know that your own brain will go, I like good. Great sounds okay, and you can simultaneously agree that that could be cool, but your brain will fight you. And again, I don't know about fight. That's kind of a different word I wanted to use, but there's something in you that will resist change, and when you can see what that is, be aware of what that is, and actually change, I think you can do some pretty remarkable things in life. So, Dave, you can take over from here. I just put tools and next steps. I mean, I'm still coaching here at Building Champions. I think there's some amazing people here. I don't think you can do this alone. I never have. I think utilizing tools. Dave, I got so many people that use Mortgage Coach that rave about it, and clearly, and I know I'm biased, but a little plug for Building Champions. I think having a coach help you walk through this, and our coaches are equipped with this and helping people go through it, is an absolute must if you want to have success. I've never seen an athlete or heard of a corporate person that ever got great alone. You just don't see it. So anyway, that's my whole thing on lizard brain. We got Q&A for 60 seconds.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a 3-minute wrap-up, everybody. So anybody that can stay on for 3 to 4 minutes, stay tuned. I'm going to wrap a few things up. Steve, I'm really grateful for the time that you spent, putting this deck together, the conversations you and I have had. I have a feeling that we're going to come back in and share some of those tools in ways of being more successful. I urge everybody, I mean, I've got Daniel Harkavy coming on a call soon to talk about a number of things. You guys are part of our community. We have Bill Hart every week in the Rate Watch TV show sharing ideas and concepts. So you guys know we're big fans, and they're key to your success and your follow-through. My wrap-up, and again, Steve, I know you've got clients to serve, so anytime you want to jump off, feel free. If you want to hear the wrap-up, it's being recorded. It'll be on YouTube by the end of the day.
I do have to jump, but so I didn't want you to come on and say thank you, Steve, and have me not say anything. It'd be bad. I want to just again affirm you what you're doing, Dave. I'm really grateful to be able to share with people. If you have any questions, you can reach me at Steve at Building Champions, and you can wrap up and do all that. And I'm just grateful to have been a part of it. So good luck with your lizard brain, and let me know how change goes. And if there's anything we can do to help, let me know. All right?
We'll do, and look forward to our next conversation. Right, so everybody, in the Mortgage Coach community, this one really resonated with me on a personal level, and I don't have time to get into all the layers there. But I think as a professional, if you're getting the level of success that you desire and that you think your skill and your work ethic deserves, then you're probably right. But if you're closing 5 or less loans in this market, you're not. You're not. You're not serving yourself. You're not serving your family, and there's some things that you're doing that aren't right. So I just urge you to question this one. And I think this is for me personally, while I joked around about my 8th grade daughter and my wife, but in all honesty, while I might let them be right sometimes, I kind of stew on it, and I just need to release. You don't need to be right, and peace is so important, and in business, success is so important, and being right gets in the way of a lot of success for a lot of folks, my opinion. So stay tuned for more tools and next steps from Steve and the Building Champions team. I hope you go to the Facebook page. If you liked this conversation, make sure you like it. You let us know that, hey, this is the kind of content you want us bringing into this weekly sales meeting. It's important that I get that feedback. We don't have time for Q&A. We're wrapping it up. I want to put a big reminder to everybody. If you're on this call, you're a Mortgage Coach member. If you have not gone through the mobile experience on an iPad, if you have one, and on an iPhone, if you have one, you are missing out. The feedback we're getting from the street is just profoundly powerful. We are never been more committed at delivering value to you as a mortgage professional, and this is our target. This is our bullseye, is making you the obvious choice in the eyes of your borrower through simple technology, compliance. In today's market, you've got to build a culture of compliance by delivering that wow every step of the way. And when you think about what are we delivering to the borrower, what are we empowering you to deliver to that borrower, it's just a simple method to help borrowers make confident decisions so that you're empowering them. You're not just a rate quoter. You're giving them ideas and strategies to be debt-free faster, and you're making it simple and easy to understand. So again, everybody on this call, you come to this call for leadership, to connect, for ideas. I hope we delivered that. I hope everybody on the call will create more total cost analysis experiences. That is the path forward. I hope that you're using it, you're getting more referrals, you're being the obvious choice, you're truly life changers, you're empowering borrowers. And again, I hope this content is valuable. If you did not see Jeremy's call, make sure you go to the YouTube page, check it out. This call will be posted by the end of the day. Everybody knows that you can access recordings of these at the Mortgage Coach website. And a big thank you to Steve and the Building Champions team for making time for our Mortgage Coach team. Make sure you stay tuned to what we're doing and connect with us in Facebook. I'm going to put up a poll as we wrap up this call. So please, on a scale of 1 of good to great, let us know what you thought of today's weekly meeting. Good, great. Give us some feedback, and this call is a wrap. We'll see you next Tuesday. One last reminder, every Thursday at 9 o'clock, we are drilling down on the details. Take care, everybody.